Hi guys, Nomus here. Welcome back to Northam City for episode number 8. In today's episode, I'll do quite a bit of residential expansion, trying to fill in some gaps left between different builds I've done so far, and trying to get the story looking more complete. And towards the end of the video, I'll build some parks with what is the special build of this episode, a Chinese garden. But what I'm doing right now on screen is building a little housing project, trying to emulate the style of these project housing neighborhoods you see all over New York and other East Coast cities. The assets I'm using are from Town in Manhattan, and are just perfect for this kind of build. This will be one of my go-to around the whole city, and not just for this district. These project housings often sit in a large area on their own, with some space between, with lots of trees and open green areas. This is in contrast to the typical densely packed city block design elsewhere in the city. So I'm just placing them at a slight angle, backed up a bit from the road with paths leading up. To get this look, I used building control mod to place them down without any surface texture. Later on you'll see I also put together a small skate park right next to the housing project.
Money, baby.
This little corner by water was looking a bit empty and unfinished, so I put down some rocks and overgrowth to spice it up a little. had this small empty area between buildings, and I thought instead of squeezing another building here, it was an opportunity for a micro-detailing project. Often you see gaps between buildings where there's supposed to be an infill building. At this spot, it was closed off and set up a little construction site, but for various reasons nothing ever got built here, and it just became abandoned over time. Now it's just a spot for homeless people, with tents and trash all around, with no one taking responsibility for it. This baseball field here is something I imagine to be just a little neighborhood field. Maybe there's some little league team practicing and having their games here. Next to it there was a little empty space, so naturally I saw the opportunity for some parking spots, like a real American city planner. Going across the road, I finally gave the citizens of Northam some higher education. From a fictional aspect, it was kinda needed, but I'm not ready to build a big university campus yet, because I don't know where or what it will look like. What I used is this awesome little community college asset, and in Northam this is just a small local city college. Fun stuff with some tiny sport facilities and a little parking. Nothing fancy, but I like how it's just tucked in between its surroundings, like many smaller city colleges are in real life. In an early episode, I started building out a bike lane network along one of the streets, and here I'm just trying to continue that network on. As you can see, the green surface doesn't really play nice on slopes, but I cover it up later on with some road damage decals. This high-rise apartment asset is a copy of a building from SimCity 4, I believe, and I really love the look of it. And it just fits so perfectly with the theme of the city that I had to use it. I'm just placing them down with a little breathing room from the road, and doing some nice path work around. The complex gets its own little park almost between the towers with paths, trees, benches, and some playgrounds. There was a bit of a lack of elementary school coverage at this point, and when looking at the placement, there was nothing close by to downtown Astoria. So realistically, it made sense to put one down here. As I didn't really have a high density school asset that was fitting, I decided to try and put my own together. This asset here is an elementary school from Toronto, I think, and it looks quite suburban. It probably is. But what I do is just use this asset as an entrance and base for the school. I then expand it upwards using some generic office buildings that I adjust with PO to make them fit the shape of the school building. I think it worked out reasonably well. And in order to get the number for the school at the right number, I just put some block service schools inside the entrance of the actual school building, just to up that number so it makes sense in terms of the improved size of the building with the extra floors. Right by downtown is Astoria now, so I wanted to expand it out a little bit with some more modern high-density apartment buildings in this free city block over here next to the elementary school. Yeah, this gigantic parking garage looks pretty ugly, but it kind of makes sense right next to such a high density area. And it does add some realism. You'll definitely see stuff like this in a real city. I talked about building some parks at the start of this video, and this is the first one. Holmes Park, named after Chadwick Holmes Street, which passes along one side of it. It's a pretty standard, medium-sized park, but I tried to make it a nice one at that. Here I tried something a bit different with the pots. As I couldn't find one that I really like, I just put invisible pots all over and designed my own pot using IMT. And I think that I definitely will do more of this, as it opens a lot more options. I'll also do a lot of benches, a fountain, some small playground, and the centerpiece piece, which is a nice gazebo I extend out with a retaining wall and a wooden surface. My favorite thing I did here was using these relatively new assets from the workshop, which are animated Sims doing yoga, as well as yoga mat props. These look great, and I must applaud Sven Berlin for this. So the main build of the episode that I promised comes last. Astoria Chinese Garden was built in the 1850s by Chinese immigrants, which was the biggest immigrant group of this part of Astoria already back then. It's been a haven for the locals for generations, and it's now also a pretty big tourist attraction. I decided after building the downtown of Astoria, which is kind of a second Chinatown and the more authentic one, that I wanted a Chinese garden close by. And this ended up being the perfect spot. It really was made possible by the Chinese garden asset collection on the workshop from Emperor Lee. It looks truly amazing. I always knew I wanted some garden paths around the edges and a small man-made lake in the middle, which was bordered by these Chinese-style paths with fences and roofs. And of course the stone bridge crosses it in the middle. I also wanted to use all the different temple assets and spend some time just figuring out where they would fit the best. There wasn't really one specific inspiration for the build, but I did look at some pictures of Chinese gardens just to get in the mood. And then I tried to imagine what it would look like in exactly this city. The final touch is of course all the different trees and plants. I wanted it to be really colorful and vibrant, and I think I achieved that in some way. Anyway, that is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed the build if you made it this far into the video. A comment, like and subscribe would be greatly appreciated and help me grow the channel. I also do have a Patreon page in case you'd wish to support me further. Hope to see you next time. Have a great rest of your day and stay tuned for some cinematics.